I mean, what did I expect? Finding hidden gems on AliExpress is truly fascinating. And you seem to enjoy it as well, because I've been doing this video series for 19 episodes now. And in case you're completely confused right now, let me tell you that AliExpress is a Chinese online store where you can find the newest, weirdest, and sometimes super useful products. But there's also lots of hard to detect garbage on the site. And that is why for almost 4 years now, I've been testing interesting looking products in order to ultimately tell you whether you should check them out or stay away from them. And in today's special 20th episode, I will not only have a look at this mystery product that I had laying around since the start of the series, but also all other products that did not quite fit into previous episodes. Meaning we got an extra full show today. So let's not waste any more time and let's get started.
This video is sponsored by Sawdot, where you don't have to gamble to find a hidden gem, because everything they make is actually useful. Dev boards, sensors, breakouts and more. The one I want to show you is the ink plate. It's an ESP32 with a built-in e-paper display, available in black and white, color and several sizes. What makes it interesting is the power draw, just 20 microamps in deep sleep, so a battery-powered display can run for months. And it's easy to work with ready-made examples for Arduino, MicroPython, ESP-IDF and Home Assistant. Great for a weather station, a desk dashboard or any always-on display. Check the link below and use code GreatScott for 20% off your first order. Now let's get started with the mystery package that, after unboxing, does look pretty heavy duty and like something I have not seen before. And it is actually a voltage stabilizer that I really got 4 years ago for a price of 136 euro. Now sadly, the original listing does not exist anymore, but I luckily found a very similar looking product whose description will hopefully fit my product as well. After browsing through that, it was clear to me that the main goal of this thing is to create a stable mains output voltage, even if the input voltage is varying. And that is why I skipped this product for so long, because in probably most first world countries, this problem does not really exist. But don't worry, I can easily simulate a variable mains voltage with my auto transformer here. But before hooking that up, let's firstly have a look inside this thing. And oh boy, this was terrible. I mean look, I've never seen such a loose mains voltage transformer. Also, there were no ferrules on any wire. And even though the power plug does come with a protective earth, it is nowhere to be found inside the device and thus not hooked up, even though this entire metal case is conductive. And I'm not done, because on the backside of the PCB was a solder blob. And for insulation, they use scotch tape underneath the PCB and on the circuit breaker. I've never seen such an unsafe mains power device. And in case you're wondering, yes, it does start up without exploding. But it certainly does not deliver a stable 220 volts out, even though the display makes you believe that. So what this thing is basically doing is using relays to connect to different parts of a step-up transformer, depending on how low or high the input voltage is. Meaning we definitely do not get a stable output. And because of that, and due to many other reasons, this thing gets the first double thumbs down in this series. So let's move on to something hopefully better with this nutcracker, of which there are several versions available. But I went with the second smallest one for around 18 euro. Not that cheap. Its purpose is pretty easy to explain. If you have a rusty nut that does not want to come off, then you can use this thing to crack it open. But I will certainly not do that to my lovely old moped. Instead, let's use my recently built homemade door here as an example. And I immediately found a problem. You see, when the nut is positioned flat onto something, then the cracker cannot really grip it, and thus it is pretty much impossible to remove. And when the nut is not mounted flat, then you have to apply so much pressure that everything just starts bending. I honestly feel like there are very few real-life examples where this thing can truly shine. And as you can see, it also did not survive my few lightweight attempts, meaning I will stick to my angle grinder and forget about this nutcracker. Moving on though to this mini secondary screen for your computer that you can get for around €3. To use it, you put on the included sticker on the USB side you don't want to use, you plug it all into a USB port, install and start the given software, which is luckily in English, and there you can adjust what you want to display on the screen, which can be the time, pictures, or what makes the most sense, how much your CPU, RAM and GPU is currently under load. Afterwards you click save and run, and it pretty much works like you would expect. Yeah, kind of useful, and you can even create your own theme with the software. Of course, it makes the most sense when your USB port is somewhere close to your monitor. But besides that, the build quality is also pretty good, and the only negative aspect I could find is that only Windows is supported. So all in all, definitely useful if you're in the market for something like this. With the next item, we stay near our PCs with this CMOS Key Cap that you can get for around €16. I think this is a really awesome looking highlight for your keyboard, if you're an electronics nerd like me, because there's a proper semiconductor inside there. The quality of this thing is also super nice. The clicking sounds and feels very satisfying, and LED lights can shine through it. The only negative aspect is its price point, when you consider how many keycaps you would need to fill an entire keyboard. But overall, I still give it the thumbs up. Moving on to something completely different in the form of this pipeline inspection tank kit that I got for €163. Quite expensive. It not only comes with the main tank, but also a remote and a USB stick that we will save for later. Now using this thing is pretty straightforward. For me at least, because I got the most expensive kit that comes with a remote. If you don't have that, then there's also a phone app that you can use. But no matter what I tried, I could not get the phone to connect to the tank. And the constant Chinese speaking did not really help with that. But anyway, driving this thing with the remote works perfectly fine. But there's definitely some lag there. What got me so interested in it though was the pipeline inspection part, that I'm not sure I can trust. I mean, it is definitely not water, or I would even say dirt proof. But as you might already have noticed, it does come with a small adjustable camera and a live feed, meaning you can really control this thing blind. That makes it great for finding out what lives under your couch. But no matter what I tried, I was not able to take a picture and save it on my inserted SD card. Back to the positive stuff though, with the tank tracks. That certainly gives this thing some usable grip. So you know what? Screw it, and let's do a proper pipeline test with the only one I have that goes into my big water reservoir. So I put this thing in there and hope for the best. But just to be sure, I attached a small rescue line to it. And yeah, this worked out better than expected, even though the Wi-Fi range probably only reached around 2 meters into the pipe. So overall, it is kind of a mixed bag, even though I like that the hardware here is pretty maker friendly and the USB stick contains all the hardware and software information, including things like the schematic. But I don't know, I feel like this is a bit too expensive for what it is, and thus not a recommendation of mine. And that brings us to the smallest voltmeter ever that you can get for around €5. And yes, by flipping the display over onto the main circuit, it is truly tiny, just like the description claims it. To use it, we simply have to apply 3.5 volts to 30 volts to the G and V pins, and then we can use the V+ pin to measure a voltage. Now it seems like the refresh rate is pretty good, and it can easily measure a voltage outside of its supply voltage range. And by using my very precise multimeter, the accuracy of this tiny voltmeter is around 1% of its measured value, which is not too shabby. The operating current is, by the way, always around 12 milliamps, no matter the supply voltage, and there are no heat problems even at the highest voltage. And since the PCB is very well made and even comes with removable mounting holes, I can certainly recommend this product. Next we come to this portable warm air blower that I got for around 21 euro. Now, truth be told, I'm that kind of guy who uses a portable heater in the garage during winter, because it can get freaking cold. So this product seems like a good fit for me. I mean, it will obviously not draw up to 2 kilowatts from mains power that then gets converted into heat, because it is battery powered. So let's hook up a Makita battery and try out switch position 1 that blows out normal air, and switch position 2 that heats it all up to around 65°C. That is definitely not enough to warm up your workspace, but enough to keep your hands from freezing, and that can really make a difference. So next I also measured the current flow, which is around 5.5 amps in heating mode, meaning my normal batteries would not even last an hour doing this. But on the positive side, you get 2 extra USB-A ports that can output quite a bit of current. So last but not least, I wanted to check out the internal build quality, and while the USB circuit seemed okay, I was not happy at all about this diode that was just wrapped around the switch, as well as this poorly soldered heater wire, meaning all in all I give this the thumbs down. We're getting closer to the end, and that brings us to these 2 BLDC motor driver boards that cost around the same actually. Now you obviously need such a board when driving a BLDC motor, and they're usually called ESC or electronic speed controller. Normally they look like this, completely encapsulated, oftentimes not that cheap, and they need a specific control signal to do their job. So I was curious how these 2 cheaper, simpler alternatives would perform in comparison. But before we start testing, I of course had a look at their product descriptions, and they certainly do come with some power differences. So let's start with the weaker one, and good news first, it did spin up all the motors I threw at it, which is not bad. But at around half an amp, these semiconductor power switches already got pretty warm, meaning while it does work with all my motors, it is pretty much only useful for testing things out. And that brings us to the second option, that performed way better and reached not only way higher speeds at the same input voltage, but at around half an amp pretty much created no heat through the semiconductor switches. It also worked with everything I threw at it, making this a fantastic low budget, simple to use ESC, whose max current rating of 3 amp you should however not exceed. So all in all, while one ESC performs better, I still give them both the thumbs up. And that brings us to the end with this infrared switch that I had laying around forever, and whose original listing does not exist anymore, but I found one that looks very similar for around 18 euro. This thing is basically for environments where pushing a button is not possible, and it is kind of funny how big this switch is in these pictures. But anyway, when looking at it, it should be pretty straightforward to use. So I pulled out my traditional switch and wired up this infrared one instead. And as expected, this was super easy to do, but my outlet underneath no longer fits. But on the plus side, this thing worked pretty great and reacted snappy, which I do appreciate. And the distance at which it triggers is around 12 cm. For my situation here, that is a bit too far, but should not be a problem for pretty much all other locations. So last but not least, I also measured the power consumption of this thing, which is around 0.1 watt and 0.8 watt when powered on. Not too bad considering a relay is in there. And speaking of that, the PCB also looks pretty good. So all in all, while I initially didn't expect that, I kind of like this thing and thus give it the thumbs up. And that was the end of this special episode, and all in all, there were some hidden gems, but also the biggest disappointment so far. I hope you enjoyed it and you're looking forward to more. If so, consider supporting this show on Patreon or through YouTube channel memberships to keep it going. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Stay creative, and I will see you next time.